Welcome to the New Greens podcast on Hubsky.com. Here's your host, Steven Klausnitzer.
You remember when you were a kid and you would go outside all day long and run? You were either playing baseball, pickup games of soccer, running to the neighbor's house, running home. The point is, you were always active. And then at one point, after a childhood of running, you grew up and you realized running sucks. When asked why he loved running, Jesse Owens replied, "I loved running because it was something I could do by myself. Under my own power, I could go in any direction, fast or slow as I wanted. Fighting the wind if I felt like it, seeking out new sights just on the strength of my feet and the courage of my lungs." Well, when you put it that way, it does sound pretty fantastic. And there's got to be something to say for running. In 2011, over 1.6 million people in the United States laced up a pair of shoes and ran a half marathon. And that is over 16% more than in 2010. So the sport itself is growing. Still, all those people that are running now, at some point were kids, and at some point, I'm guessing, they decided they didn't like running for a little bit. It's very rare that you run throughout. And I asked my friend Brian why he thought this was, and here's what he had to say.
When did running start to suck and why? I guess it started to suck when they made it a mandatory thing in gym class where you had to run a mile. I think it was twice a year. And the running part of it didn't necessarily suck. It was the part that, you could potentially be the last one.
I remember that well. I hated doing that in gym class. Because of that very reason. I never wanted to be the last one.
Luckily, we had a giant fat kid in our class, and he was always the last one. So yeah, I guess that's when it started to suck in elementary school.
What I think is still a mystery, though, is why anyone would go back to running and start running long distances. I'm talking 26 miles, some people 30 miles, and some people want to even run 50 and 100 miles. We're talking about nails falling off of your toes. We're talking about nipples bleeding, like horrible, horrible chafing, like you couldn't imagine. What in the world would possess someone to do this?
Reluctantly crouched at the starting line. Engines pumping and thumping in time. The green light flashes, the flags go up. Churning and burning, they yearn for the cup.
I'm goal-directed.
You're what?
I'm goal-directed.
Oh, goal-directed. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Then gold-rectumed?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
I heard gold erected.
Well, they go together, don't they?
Out of town, the arena is empty, except for one man still driving and striving as fast.
Meet Cliff, the guy who actually convinced me that running doesn't suck. Cliff trained me for a while, and eventually I ran my first half marathon back in June. Cliff is what is referred to as a distance runner.
He's going the distance. He's going for speed. She's all alone in a time of need.
I ran a 50K race last year in January. That's about 32 miles and change.
Because Cliff had finished the race faster than he had anticipated, his wife wasn't at the finish line to greet him. When she showed up, he was bruised, battered, and could barely move.
So when she actually showed up to get me, I had just finished like 5 or 6 minutes before, and she showed up and she's like, "Oh, I missed you, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Oh, that's okay." She goes, "Okay, well, the car's parked right over there." And I said, "Where?" And she goes, "Oh, it's in the parking lot about 200 yards up the road." And I said, "Okay, go get it." and
I'm done moving for today.
exactly. And she said, well, it's just 200 yards. I was like, you don't understand. I want you to open the door and back the car up so I can fall into it.
Okay, so other than grueling pain and not being able to get into your car after a race, how has running positively affected your life?
Running more than the other sports has made me mentally tougher because running is all in your head. You know, dang, what was his name? I think, therefore I am. Descartes. I mean, Descartes was worried that his whole life was in his head. Well, if you run, I think one of the things you find is that most of the act of running occurs in your head. Your legs are perfectly capable of taking you wherever you want to go. I mean, we're genetically designed to run down any animal that has ever existed on the planet during the span of humankind. So humans genetically are designed to run long distances at fairly high speeds. And the reason we don't is not only practice, but because we're mentally not capable of forcing ourselves to do it.
Okay, so we're kids. We run. We love it. It's our mode of transportation. Gym class comes around and it becomes something we have to do and are measured as to how well we do it. And the last thing we want is to be last. So our love for running dissipates. Maybe we get a bike and we start using the bike more often and running starts to suck. Then, as an adult, we realize that running's a way to set goals and to challenge yourself mentally. Okay, I'll buy that, but there's a lot of ways to do that. I'm not sold.
I've been running a while and I finally figured out something about why I like it so much. And it's this.
Meet Clive Watson of TripleSequitur.com. A runner, a fantastic writer, and the kind of guy
Running is magic.
that can say a sentence like that and get away with it.
When I run to change the world. Granted, I don't change much of it, at least not all at once. But in another sense, I change every bit of it, in an instant. Abracadabra. I change the world by changing myself. Much of the transformation of the self that happens when you run is chemical. Endorphins. We flood our moods and our minds with endorphins when we run. And it feels pretty amazing. I become giddy, euphoric, abuzz with energy and anticipation. And all of this leads not into a crash, but to a serene and nearly imperturbable calm, deep, practically post-coital in nature.
Brian described the same thing, a sort of post-coital phenomenon, although he used different words.
Afterwards, you kind of have this, real clarity. You have a lot of sort of confidence. Any slight depression that you may have had before you ran is pretty much gone. So it's a lot like that, if you want 100% honesty, blow your load or go run, because immediately following that, you're going to get probably as clear as you'll ever be. So.
Well said, Brian. Well said. There's an ancient Persian proverb that says, "He who wants a rose must respect the thorn." I'm pretty sure that was Guns N' Roses, dude. Well, we see the thorns here. As Tobias Funke would likely say, it's hard, it sucks, and it makes you sore. So my question to you, Hubsky, is do you run? If you do, what do you like about it? Why do you run? If you don't run, is it because at some point running just started to suck? Did you run when you were a kid and you realized, what the hell am I doing? I'd like to hear either way. I want to thank Clive Watson, Brian Goodwin, and Cleef Elam for helping me with this podcast. And thanks for listening. It's the first time I've ever done this, and I really enjoyed it. And Clive Watson. Thanks for listening.
Speak up.
Hey, what's that?
Cliff,
I can't hear you, Cliff.
Cliff, I can't hear you.
What's the great thing about running?
Use the
Cliff,
microphone.
what?
Cliff. Hey,
I
use
can't
the
hear you.
microphone.
What's the great thing?
Speak up.
What?
The great thing about running is all you need is a pair of shoes and a pair of shorts.
Very true. Very, very true.